back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. I'm not sure if this is going to be its own separate vlog or if I'm just going to incorporate this into a vlog that I've already filmed or something, but I did want to answer some of your questions about law school that you guys may have, since I haven't done one of these in quite a while, and I think it's time that I answer them, as I have done 2 years of law school at this point. So I thought I would answer some questions for you guys. I am not in my typical setting. I am back home at my parents' house. I am not in my apartment. So that is where I'm at right now, and this is where I'm filming this. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any other questions aside from the ones I answered on here, leave them down below. I'm always happy to answer your guys' questions. I did ask you guys in the YouTube community tab to ask me some questions, and that's where I'm getting all these questions from. Typically when I film Q&As, that's where I ask you guys to ask me the questions. So be sure to be on the lookout of my community tab on my YouTube channel, because that's where I communicate with you guys, and that's where I ask you guys to put all your questions in, and that's where I'm pulling them from right now. So I did get about 12 questions, so I'm going to try to make this as short as possible and not go into too much detail for each question. Okay, so the first question is, what inspired me to go into law? And honestly, that's a hard question for me because I'm not exactly sure. I've always just been really intrigued by knowing the law and lawyers and what they do, and just going into a profession that really helps me thrive, I guess, in a society, knowing what my rights are, knowing what the laws are. I think that's something that's very important for people to know, and as a lawyer I will be helping people know those things, and I myself will know those things. So I don't know, just overall knowing the law, I think, is what inspired me to go into law school. I don't have any lawyers in my family. I don't know any lawyers personally, aside from my mentors that I've gained through law school, but prior to that, I didn't really know anyone. So I can't really say that there was a person that I looked up to, or there was a person that inspired me to go to law school or go into law, because there actually wasn't. So I know that's kind of a short and cliche answer, but that's honestly my journey up until this point. The next question is, do you really think top law schools really make better lawyers, or is it just a prestige thing? And honestly, I think law schools, or like top 14 law schools and all those other higher number law schools, can give you better resources and can give you better connections, a better alumni network and all that stuff. I don't necessarily think that they produce better lawyers. Being a lawyer requires a lot of skills aside from knowing the law. You have to be organized, you have to network, you have to know how to talk to people, you have to know how to do so many things and stay on top of things. If you're going into big law, top law schools matter. If you're not, then not necessarily. Being a good lawyer does not matter. I mean, there's some people that come out of the best law schools and may not be the best lawyers. So I think at the end of the day, hard work speaks louder than the school you went to. Honestly, like, if you bust your butt and like do everything you have to do, stay on top of things, and like I said, just do the right things as you go through your career, I think you can just be as great a lawyer as someone who came out of like top 14. My overall answer is, I don't think those schools make better lawyers. I think if you work hard, you can be just as good. But if you're going into a big law job, then maybe consider going into a top 14, simply because they like to recruit top 14 and higher prestigious school students. So, okay, so the next question is, what were you wrong about? What surprised you about law school now that you're a 3L? And honestly, something that surprised me was the amount of networking that you have to do, the effort that you have to put into meeting with people and getting to know lawyers in your city and build a network. I never really thought about that before coming into law school. I was like, I'm just gonna go to law school, pass my classes, sit for the bar, and then eventually I'll get a job. But honestly, no, you have to make the effort to meet with people and get to know people and just build a network, like I said. And that's something that I dread it, because I'm a very introverted person. So that's something that I struggled with a lot my first year of law school, just having to put myself into that mindset that I have to put myself out there for lawyers and people in the legal community to get to know me. So it's something that I didn't know, and something that kind of surprised me. So yeah, pretty much networking and getting to know people is something that surprised me about law school. Other than that, I guess just like the cold calls, I knew they were going to happen, but they're actually not as bad as movies make it seem. So cold calling is kind of unpleasant, I guess, but it's not the end of the world and people move on. The next question is, what would you have told yourself as an incoming 1L knowing what you know now? And honestly, something I tell myself, and it's something that we all can't help but do, being that most of us that are in law school are type A students, is to not compare myself. I went in there already feeling some imposter syndrome, and honestly putting myself in a position where I keep comparing myself to others and saying, oh my gosh, other people are reading 5 weeks ahead, why am I not doing that? Or other people are doing this, why am I not studying this way? Why I should be doing that too. If I want to be good, I should be doing that too. And honestly, that was just so unhealthy because it put me in situations where I was doing so much, but it wasn't doing anything for me. So I was briefing like 3 different ways. I was reading way in advance. I was doing all these extra steps that they honestly just were not working for me at the time, and they may have been working for my classmates, but for me, maybe just sitting down, reading and briefing on the book would work better, or maybe sitting down and briefing on that sheet that I used to do for my first year of law school worked better than doing it on the book at that time. So it just kind of depended. So something that I wish I would have told myself was to stop comparing myself and stop trying to do what other people are doing, because simply because it's working for them doesn't mean it's going to work for me. And there's no right or wrong answer as to how you navigate law school, because each of us learn differently. Each of us will navigate it differently. So for me, it was more so stop trying to do what other people are doing because it's just not working out for you. And honestly, as soon as I realized that, as soon as I stopped paying attention to what my classmates were doing for, I don't know, torts or for civil procedure, the minute I stopped paying attention to that is the minute that I started to do a lot better, because I just took matters into my own hands and did what worked for me. So my advice to anyone else going in is to try different methods and try different learning styles. But just because someone's learning or someone is thriving off a learning style does not mean that you necessarily will. So don't feel defeated just because it's not working out for you, because sometimes it's not meant to work out for everyone the same way. So just try different styles and eventually you'll find the one that works best for you. So the next question is, how has networking helped me? And honestly, it has helped me a whole lot. It has exposed me to people who come from similar backgrounds as me, people who have the same first generation experience as me, but it also has exposed me to people who have completely different backgrounds than me, who have, I don't know, like 5 lawyers in their family, and see how they've progressed through certain obstacles. And just networking has also helped me realize what type of law I want to do. It has helped me see the type of lifestyle that different lawyers live and how they balance work and life. And so that has also helped me determine what I want to see in my future. So networking is very important. What is something you see in law school that you wouldn't normally see in other careers? That's kind of hard because I haven't really been part of any other career. I went straight to law school from college, and I did have a job as an admin during my gap semester, but it wasn't necessarily like a career or somewhere that I could really pay attention to what it's like being in that position or in that like climbing ladder. So it's a little hard for me to say, but I guess the competitiveness, it's in the nature of a lawyer to be competitive. So that's something that people come into law school with and they leave law school with. And then obviously once you go into the legal world, you are a lawyer or advocating for your client. So you are pushing down on that competitiveness by, advocating for someone against someone else. So I don't know, I guess there's competition in every career at some point, getting a promotion, getting a certain position, doing a certain project. That's definitely in every career, but I think just the way that lawyers go about it is just a little different, because it's just lawyers are always there, like trying to push something, trying to get something done. And so I think the competitiveness just never really eases as a lawyer as compared to other places where once you're in that field or in that position, you already got the promotion, then like you just do your job at that point. And here I feel like it's just always something that lawyers have on edge almost. So again, I have not been a lawyer, and As a law student, that's what I'm assuming it's going to be like. But I have not been a lawyer, and I am not a lawyer. I'm also not in any other career field. So that's a really tough question for me to answer, but I'm assuming that just the nature and competitiveness of lawyers is something that is a little more toned down in other careers and other professions. The next question is, what kind of tips would you give yourself if you could go back in time when you were in your application cycle? So I guess any application tips and all of that. And honestly, do a lot of research. That's my tip. Do a lot of research about the school. What's the school's strengths? What type of law are you going into, or are you interested in? Do they have any special programs for that? What kind of courses or electives do they offer? Like if you're interested in family law, do they have a child support class? Do they have a special divorce class? Or do they have special classes? Like if you're doing business, do they have a special tax class? Do they have a special, mergers and acquisitions class? Stuff like that. You want to make sure that the school offers what you're going to need. Also, again, if you're going into big law, top 14 schools kind of do matter in that sense, just because they like to look into those type of students that are in those schools. So you might want to consider that, or the ranking of your school, but I don't think that's the 100% defining factor. But you do want to research your school, see what they stand for, see how much you have to pay, how much they're willing to give out in scholarships, and just things like that. Just make sure that it's going to be a school that's going to work for you and give you the resources that you're going to need to be a successful lawyer in the field that you're planning on going into. And just looking into different areas and cities. Cities is very important. The city that you plan on practicing in, or the city that has a really good legal network, and just those things to consider as far as to what schools to apply to. As far as the applications, you want to make sure you have your letters of recommendation ready to go with time. You don't want to be pushing back your application date just because you're waiting on letters. So you have to get those letters early. That way you have them ready to go and you're ready to submit your application whenever you're done with your part of it. So you don't want to be waiting on professors or bosses or whoever's writing your letter to be done with it. You want to have that ready to go. So I do recommend asking for those early. When you're asking for those, give a resume. That way they have something to base it off of. Those are some of my tips as far as applying to schools, choosing what school to apply to, and the application process. The next question is, would you say that law is portrayed on TV shows is comparable to real life? So I guess if TV shows mimics real life. And I will say yes and no. Obviously the TV shows add so much drama to it, and I don't think law school is that much drama. And so I don't think there's drama as far as in law school, but like the cold calling is very real, like how they do in Legally Blonde. Like they do call on you. You are seated in a class pretty large, and everyone might have their laptops if they allow them, or everyone has their books. There is a lot of reading, and people do study in group settings at the library. People do go to the library a lot, but I don't think it's as dramatic as TV shows make it seem. So I would say yes and no, I guess. Okay, so the last question is, how did I know law school was right for me? And honestly, that's a really tough question. Ever since high school, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, even though I didn't really know exactly what being a lawyer entailed. I didn't learn about the LSAT until I was about a sophomore or junior in college, and at that time, that's when I also learned about the bar exam. So obviously, I was learning about all these things way later on than most people who say they want to be lawyers do. So I was getting really close to getting into law school as I was finding out these things. So I guess I never stopped and thought about a second option. Just since high school, I knew I wanted to do this. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, and I kind of just went through the motions. I just did all the steps that took for me to get into law school. And so at the time, I never really sat back and reflected, is this the right thing for me, or am I doing something wrong? And I actually didn't think about that up until I was already in law school. My first year of law school, imposter syndrome hit hard. It was just a very hard year, and that's when I started doubting myself, and I was like, is this right for me? Am I doing the right thing? Am I getting into a commitment that's really expensive and then in the end I'm not going to want to do it? So that's kind of where it hit me when I was a first year law student, like done with my first semester. But up until that point, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I knew that law school was my only option. And so I kind of didn't give myself a B plan. So I just worked my way there. And once I got there, I realized that it is what I want to do. So I guess my advice, if you're on the fence about law school and whether law is the right thing for you, is to definitely try it out before you get into law school. So maybe do an internship, work as a paralegal or legal assistant. You'd be surprised how many lawyers actually take high schoolers to intern with them or to shadow them. Or also, like I said, if you have a college degree, maybe you can do a paralegal, or you can be a legal assistant and get some experience working at a firm and seeing what lawyers do and kind of getting familiar with legal papers, like seeing what a motion looks like and seeing what the law looks like before even getting into law school. Because honestly, I had never seen that before getting into law school. I had never seen Westlaw, I had never seen a motion, I had never really seen anything. And so kind of going through that was really surprising. And I can see how someone who's already on the fence about law school and having the experience that I had could really scare them off and scare them away from being a lawyer. But I guess for me, since I always was kind of stubborn on the fact that I wanted to be a lawyer, I stuck through it and now I'm glad I did. But if you're on the fence, I definitely recommend getting some experience, reaching out to attorneys, meet with them. That would be the best advice I'd have. And those are all the questions I have. I hope they all make sense. I feel like every time I do these type of videos, I just ramble and talk so much and just go off. I hope these were helpful for you. I hope you guys are enjoying seeing my experience and seeing how I've gone through law school for the past 2 years, and now I'm about to go through my last one. So I just want to thank every single one of you who have supported me through this journey and who have continued to watch my videos, because honestly, I just love sharing my experience with you guys. So thank you all so much. So with that being said, that wraps up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.